You know, everybody's blaming McConnell and everybody's blaming Bannon, but I blame you. I don't recall you ever endorsing Roy Moore. I don't recall you ever urging people to vote for Roy Moore. I'm searching the deep, dark crevices of my memory on this. What do you think, Mr. Snerdley? Do you have any recollection? I guess I didn't really make a. Well, no. I covered this thing thoroughly, and I did what I always do. I identified who our political enemies are, and I exposed them. And yesterday was a championship day. In fact, Drudge has recognized it. The best Drudge headline of the whole year. Rush, rush. Sadly, it's not about me. And if I were lost in Egoville, I would say that it was about me. It's about the tax bill. Rush, rush, tax bill by Christmas. Chuck U. Schumer is saying, no. You Republicans would be unethical and immoral if you vote for that tax bill now. Since you just lost the seat last night, you need to wait until Doug Jones is seated in January and then have the tax cut vote. The scary thing is the Republicans might go for that. Especially having lost, the Republicans might think they need to re-embark on the old strategy of trying to prove to the Democrats and the media that they're fair and balanced and not mean people. And what better way to do that than to say, yeah, okay, we'll take this tax bill on which our future depends, and we'll shelve it, and we'll wait for you to get your guy in there so you can kill it. Now, if that happens, I can understand a lot of people being crabby. But I just look at, yesterday was a yeoman day, but I mean, they're all yeoman. And I do what I do every day, and I did what I did every day, and that is I exposed the left for who and what they are. I told you what this Alabama race was all about. But the one thing, I leave it up to people to make up their own minds, because I have always believed in the intelligence and the involvement and the awareness of the people in audience. Another crabby email. Boy, Mitch McConnell must be walking on air today, Rush. He not only defeated a candidate who he didn't want, but now he's lost another Republican Senate seat, so he has another reason to not get anything done. Mitch McConnell must be the happiest guy in town. I have noticed in the emails I've checked today, there's a lot of animosity at Mitch McConnell today. I mean, it is overflowing. I'm getting emails from people who think this is exactly what McConnell wanted, that too many Republicans are willing to sacrifice the victory last November in order to get rid of the intruder and outsider Trump. I've got crabby emails from people who have finished reading conservative websites and blogs who are celebrating the loss of a Republican Senate seat, and they don't understand it, and they are livid and fit to be tied. There is a lot of crabby. There's a story. John Nolte at Breitbart has a story today on CNN, and its ratings being in the basement. And I got a crabby response to that. I mean, the crabbiness is just, it's all over the place. It's kind of invigorating in and of itself. So I wrote this person back. I said, what are you mad at? Are you mad that Breitbart is seeking refuge in irrelevant, meaningless places here by pointing out after we lose a Senate seat that CNN sucking? And pretty much that was it. This is a story talking about CNN and how bad their 2017 has been and how they're in the ratings cellar, and they are. But if you tune into CNN today, they don't think they're losing anything. CNN was actually cheering. There were cheers on the set last night during the election returns, and they're happy as hell. CNN thinks that they are gigantic winners today. CNN has been in last place in cable news for I don't know how long, and yet they keep chugging along. They don't have any viewers, but they have advertising. They don't have any viewers, but they have enough support from advertising. They got CNN International, which, if you combine that with the entire operation, it helps the bottom line. But the bottom line on this is, I think there's a point to be made. You can sit here, especially today, and you can try to make yourself feel better by pointing out how in the ratings toilet CNN is. But what does that mean? How does that provide any solace? CNN's not miserable. CNN's ecstatic. And how does CNN survive with so little audience? I have explained this, I don't know how many times. I'll explain it again. It's all about media buyers. It's all about who they are and where they are. Advertising, let's start with companies. Take your favorite company, General Mills, Meineke Muffler. I don't care what it is. They have their own marketing departments, and those marketing departments hire advertising agencies. And they turn over to those agencies the responsibility of media buying. They have meetings with the agency, and they tell them what demographic they want to hit. They tell them what time of year they want various campaigns to run. And except on the, big advertising push of the year, such as a Super Bowl ad or something, they just leave it to the advertising agency, and the agency comes up with the plan and reports it, and they execute it, and the company pays the bill to the advertising agency, and that's that. Now, if there's a big campaign, Meineke Muffler's running a humongous thing, they might be hands-on with the agency for that one campaign. But day-to-day, the company doesn't have day-to-day contact with the agency, other than when campaigns are presented in meetings. Here's our idea for the latest spots, the rotation, where we're going to run it, but the individual media buys, they don't get into that. That's why they hire the agency. And who works at these agencies? A bunch of left-wing little college graduates. Most of them are women, and they're in the basement, and they're in windowless buildings, and they're the ones that do the media buys. And the same media buyers that will flood CNN with full rate card advertising are the same people that will not spend any money on Fox, all because of politics. That's why in prime time on Fox, you can see penile enhancement spots, and you will never see them on CNN. I don't know if Fox still running the penile enhancement spots, but when they started, it was a steady diet of that, because that's all they could get, because the bias is everywhere. I mean, we here at the EIB network had to overcome that in our first 5 years. It's something we still have to overcome on a daily basis. I'm not going to give away trade secrets and how we've done it, but we have. But I'm astounded as I run how few people in this business, for example, know how to deal with these massive Twitter and Facebook campaigns, supposedly tweeting and Facebooking and emailing all of these angry listeners threatening to never buy again. It's amazing to me how still so many people don't understand that most of that is artificial and not real and generated by bots. But that's how CNN does it. They got people supporting them and spending advertising dollars when the ratings and numbers aren't there. Then you might say, well, at some point, aren't these advertisers going to demand the results? Are they going to see the effectiveness of No, because CNN's just one of many buys when we're talking about major corporations like General Motors, Toyota. They're advertising so many places. They don't base the success or failure of a campaign on one particular place. Network, CNN. They'll add it all together and then come up with the effectiveness plan. But make no mistake, these little media buyers, they know full well what they're doing. They can sit there and see that CNN's got no viewers. And they understand that means CNN be in big trouble financially unless they do something about it. So they do something about it. Of course, CNN's got salespeople out there. They're making deals with the rate card and all that. But I get the crabbiness of the emailer's point. What does it matter that CNN's ratings are in the tank when they, in their mind, just engineered a big victory? And now this is two. This is two. You got the Virginia governor's race and then this thing in Alabama. You can't tell them they're not on a roll. They think this constitutes winning the House back in 2018. This is full speed ahead. USA Today had his editorial today. Donald Trump is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library. USA Today, lead editorial. Folks, this election, there is so much anger, so much rage, so much irrational hatred that has been bottled up all across the left and in the drive-by media that this election last night with a 21,000 vote victory. When you look at all of the money the left spent in there, all of the free equivalent money the drive-by media coverage of this race got and provided. You look at the money George Soros, and who knows what the hell kind of tricks on the ground were being played with vote turnout and all that. And as usual, did you notice during the election returns last night, the places where Democrat votes come from are the last to be heard from. They're the last to be counted. Last night it was Montgomery, Alabama. That is a large African-American population. And it's clear that the Democrats and the voter election people there were waiting to see what they needed. We saw that all throughout the 2016. Remember, there was a 90-minute period of time from like midnight to 1:30 a.m., presidential election night, where there were no new votes counted. The vote totals and the total boards did not change for an hour and a half. And we're watching the drive-bys, including Fox, and it doesn't change. And we're asking, what are you guys doing? Did they stop counting out there? Well, everybody knew what was going on. The Democrats were trying to figure out where they needed to get votes. And they gave it the old college try. They just couldn't come up with it. There's a big loser in this thing is Al Franken. Now he has to quit. They have named his replacement, but he's not going anywhere. He has not said when he's going to leave. And, you know, it was almost a given that if Roy Moore won, that Al Franken said, you know what, there's no reason for me to leave. If the Republicans want this guy, there's no reason I'm leaving. Well, now that Roy Moore, the Democrats thought Moore was going to win, by the way. Let me give you one other thing about this. This whole strategery of theirs of jettisoning anybody on their side who has ever looked at a woman the wrong way to clear the decks to be able to, with credibility, attack Trump primarily and Roy Moore if he had won. I mean, they fully expected Moore to win, and they expected that to give them a huge advantage and boost going into 2018. They were prepared either way. But if Moore won, they had the campaign rolled out. Republicans like reprobates, Republicans like kooks, Republicans like weirdos, Republicans like pedophiles. And for them to do that, Franken would have to go. And anybody else. Well, now Roy Moore didn't win. Roy Moore lost. And that means Franken doesn't have a leg to stand on. I mean, since the voters, Democrats, the voters rejected a pedophile, a kook, an oddball, who shows up to vote on a horse? I mean, I can just see the ads coming now. So what's Franken do in this circumstance? Well, he's going to try to stay. Mark my words, he's going to try to stay. He's going to do everything he can to stay, and he'll try to massage this result in Alabama as leverage. Grab soundbite number 3. I want to hear this. I wasn't watching CNN last night. I don't want anybody to get the mistaken idea that I was. I was told there was cheering on the set last night during the period of time when Jones took the lead, and we have a soundbite of this. Let's see if this is exactly what happened. We have here John King. We have Wolf Blitzer. It's just those two guys. And here goes. 3, 2, 1, hit it.
Getting excited across the room there, Wolf. It tends to happen on election nights.
Look at this. Wow, look at this. All of a sudden, Doug Jones is taking the lead.
Hale County just came in.
Take a look.
Which puts him back in the lead.
Well, there wasn't cheering, but there were no cheers there. Did you hear any? What? They were jubilant, but I didn't hear any cheers. But they were excited. You know what else happened last night? The pro Doug Jones count was late arriving. It was Montgomery, and I believe that the New York Times called this race 2 or 3 hours before Fox did. I don't know when CNN called it, but it's clear that some of these networks have a pretty good idea what's happening, but they hold off making the call so as to prolong viewership for ratings, which, of course, CNN doesn't care about, and they really don't. I mean, that's the bottom line on CNN. They don't care. They'd love to have them. They'd love to be number one, but it doesn't matter to them because they're not doing news for the public. They're doing news for other journalists than themselves. Okay, let's have a little rundown here of just some off the top of my head reaction to what happened last night. As is always the case, everybody's going to overinterpret the win, the Democrat victory. The Democrats are going to say it means much more than it does. They're going to say that it means effectively they have retaken the House. The elections next November will just be a formality. They will say, this proves now we've been right all along. Trump is hated. If his guy couldn't win in a red state that he won by 28 points, it means it's over. Trump has spent every last dime of goodwill he's got. Our initial instincts for hatred of Trump were justified because now more and more people hate Trump. This election shows this. And they're going to say a blue wave is now creating itself as being spread all across the country. And their public relations firm, the drive-by media, is going to be repeating all of this ad nauseum. But the Republicans, what's their reaction? What is their knee-jerk reaction at the Democrat victory last night? We'll touch on that when we get back. By the way, we have all kinds of news coming up on this. The tweets between Struck and his mistress, we've discovered them, and they do show an incredible bias. There's a couple of them really important, but went back to the archives and found a couple things that are going to, I think they're bombshell discoveries of things that have been reported last January, last April. We'll get to those. Anyway, I just got a note that Trey Gowdy just practically dismembered Rosenstein during his questioning. Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general, is up there being asked questions about the special counsel investigation. I didn't see any of this because this is happening while the program has started. So we're rolling on it. If that characterization is true, if Trey Gowdy actually did score some points, we'll have it for you. But the Republican reaction to the Alabama election last night, I think this is undeniable. There are some Republicans who are secretly happy about this. There are some Republicans who are openly happy about this. There are some conservative never-Trumpers who are openly giddy about this, even though the Republicans have lost a seat in the United States Senate. The never-Trumpers, some of them are already beginning the "see, I told you so's," and they will continue to wish for a bloodbath for Republicans in 2018 and 2020. Now, I don't know how many of the conservative media, Republicans inside the Beltway have this attitude, but it's a significant number that think anything to do with Trump needs to be cleansed, no matter the price, no matter the cost. Even if the Republicans don't win the White House for 25 years, we have got to cleanse this and get back to where conservative intellectuals are the domineering force, the driving force of the Republican Party. If you ask me, this election was sealed with the choice of Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General. Trump has got to stop feeding them. He's got to stop provoking them. In the first place, I don't talk to President Trump, my friends. I haven't spoken to President Trump since March, since I was last at the White House. Yeah, I've had more people tell me, President listens to you. You have to. I don't know where this got started because I don't talk to him. I haven't had a conversation or with anybody that works with him. I have one note from Hope Hicks about something unrelated to this way back about a month ago. But you got to tell him, he's got to become more likable. You got to stop the crazy. He's got to stop provoking him. I mean, Trump is who he is, and he can't help but provoke them. In his mind, they start all this. And Trump's whole life, you attack him, he hits back. I think what this note is saying is, you gotta tell Trump to get more presidential. You gotta tell Trump to be above this stuff. You gotta tell Trump stuff. Trump is Trump, and he's going to behave as he does. He also believes that his tweets and his behavior in these tweets is the only way that he gets his side of the story out there. And how does someone make themselves more likable? But is that possible with the hatred that's there for Trump today? Is there anything he can do to change it? And stay who he is, I mean. Is there anything Trump can do? Could he even joining the Democrat Party? They're so into this. They're so invested in this. Trump is a subhuman, simply unqualified and unfit, that there's no way they can turn around and soften. So what does this email mean? You got to tell Trump to become more likable. You got to tell him to stop provoking him. You've got to tell. I think, at least in the mind of the emailer, there's a lot of nervousness. And I think this emailer probably loves Trump and wishes everybody else loved him the way the emailer does and thinks Trump could make that happen. Anyway, as I say, lots of crabbiness, lots of frustration. But I think, and of course this is a hindsight thing, it's easy for people to say this in hindsight, but the real mistake in Alabama was taking Jeff Sessions out of the Senate and making him an AG. Now, I know why it happened. Sessions was the earliest. I mean, it's right in there with Flynn. Jeff Sessions was the earliest the highest-ranking Republican official to endorse Trump, to support Trump, to be seen with Trump at rallies. It was all about immigration. Jeff Sessions is singularly focused on immigration, protecting the borders. No finer man exists, but he's not a Trump personality type. He's not a warrior. He's partisan, but he's not going to be carrying the spears out there. It's just not his personality type, and Trump wants people like that. But if Jeff Sessions were still in the Senate, none of this would have happened. Well, you could also say, well, if Trump, if McConnell hadn't savaged Mo Brooks, Mo Brooks was the second best alternative to Sessions staying in Alabama. But you know what happened? I mean, they went all in for Luther Strange because he's a swamp dweller, and McConnell wanted a fellow swamp dweller. McConnell didn't want another conservative. And by the way, that is a central factor in the Republican reaction to all of this, too. More losing will add to the Republicans' arsenal of all the weapons they have of anti-conservatism and anti-conservative. They love blaming conservatism and conservatives for whatever goes wrong in the Republican Party. So on the Republican side, there's some people who are not really unhappy with this. Not like you are. And that again illustrates the giant disconnect that exists inside the Beltway, at the Washington establishment, the swamp, and everywhere else. And let's be honest about something here. Roy Moore was not a good candidate. A candidate that can't even campaign in the final days is not a good candidate. Now, I'm not even being specific here about why, but he was just not a good candidate. Too many people thought that he was weird, just like a lot of people think that Hillary Clinton is weird, and she lost too. That one of the dirty little secrets, Democrats all think that Hillary Clinton, like Bill, is loved and adored and respected unanimously and universally. The fact of the matter is Hillary Clinton is an oddball to a whole lot of people. To a whole lot of people, Hillary Clinton is her own brand of kook. And both of them explain much of the reason for the 2016 election win and the Alabama loss. If you look at Roy Moore's electoral history, he never really won an election by a big margin. And even these allegations, 40 years old, 38 years old, in a statewide election where there isn't the national focus, no Klieg lights, what's going on in your state's not front and center on cable news every night. If Moore is just running for an office or even the Senate seat when nobody cares, you probably have a different outcome. You don't have George Soros and his band throwing in so much money. You don't have the Democrat Party literally carving their future strategy on this guy's defeat. But this is what happened. How do we get these candidates? Well, see, that's where the blame, and it's appropriate to place it. This is what happens when the GOP does not do what they promise voters they're going to do. When the GOP promises to get rid of Obamacare, promises to cut taxes, whatever, and they don't do it. And they don't do it publicly and loudly for 7 years. They made all these promises, and they got elected based on those promises, going back to 2010. But then they didn't do anything about it, and you can't get them to do anything about it now. It's like pulling teeth when they are the majority. And so all it takes is some local candidate who's not part of the establishment, who can say the right things, and even though the candidate may be a little bit off the wall, off center, off kilter, kooky, whatever, there is such anger at the establishment, and there's such anger at the false promises and the betrayals that these kind of oddball candidates become attractive because people are desperate. They're tired of being lied to. They're tired of their country being transformed and in some cases destroyed, at least in the ways they appreciate it. So voters overcorrect, and they'll go for anybody who's not from the swamp, anybody who's not from the establishment. So, I mean, my emails today blaming Mitch McConnell are too many to count and read here. And the emails that are blaming the Republican establishment, and pretty much every one of them is of the opinion that the Republican establishment is very happy with what happened here, and that just infuriates people. They don't understand it. How can you be happy at losing a Senate seat? I've tried to explain this. And it even includes the fact that there are some Republicans that didn't expect to win in 2016 and didn't want to, and now don't really want to lead. They weren't geared up for it. It wasn't what the plan was. And there's been a lot of discomfort as a result. Don't forget, it was, Trump wanted Luther Strange. The beginning of all of this, he wanted Luther Strange to be the Republican nominee. And who knows? But it might have been different if Luther Strange had been running. But remember what happened when Trump got behind Luther Strange. What did the people of Alabama do? The people of Alabama said, no, Mr. President, no. And they elected Roy Moore. And they elected Roy Moore because they thought Luther Strange was a McConnell acolyte, a swamp dweller, and they're fed up with that. So Roy Moore became attractive in exactly the way I'm saying. And Trump voters didn't listen to Trump when he was endorsing Luther Strange. And I think the reason they didn't is because I don't think they thought that's what Trump really wanted. I think they thought Trump was trying to make deals with the swamp and was trying to buy him off here. So I think people that voted for Roy Moore over Luther Strange in the primary were actually trying to protect Trump. They thought they were doing what Trump really wanted, even though Trump had to say he was for Strange. This whole thing has been a mess. And it is a mess. It's a mess because the Republican establishment murkies the water and clouds them and ends up in their steadfast opposition to genuine conservatives. It causes, second and third tier people to run for office who are easily characterized as kooks or what have you. They end up becoming purity candidates. Untainted by the establishment, untainted by politics, untainted by this or that. But the problem with purity candidates is they lose. They're not winnable candidates. And who knows, Alabama voters might have said, we got a seat to play with here. And even after we send this guy, Doug Jones, whatever his name is, to the Senate, we still got 51 there. Who knows how they're thinking? But there are many, many factors here. Trying to blame it on one thing, of course, is impossible, but there are a collection of things that do make sense. We'll be back. It's out, and this is relevant, that the House of Representatives, the Republican House, has indeed passed a lot of stuff. Obamacare repeal, Planned Parenthood defunding. They're in there on the Trump tax cuts. And in fact, they're 5 for 5 in post-Trump special elections. This is a key point. Remember all of those special elections made available by Trump picking a congressman to be in the cabinet, for example? There have been 5 of them. And every one of them, the Democrats treated it like they treated this Senate race in Alabama. They had this Ossoff, the pajama boy down in Georgia. He was going to win. That was going to mean that people were tired of Trump. There are 5 of them. And in the House, where they have done a far, far thorough and better job and more publicly noted job of passing legislation related to Trump's agenda. All 5 of those special elections have been won by the Republicans. Now you go to the Senate, where we have this thing. It's a debacle out there. We'll also see. Let me grab a quick call here because I didn't grab as many yesterday as I felt duty bound to do. We're going to start Worcester, Ohio. This is Joe, and welcome, sir. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Rush. I got 3 quick points. One, I wanted to let you know I've watched your show back in 94, 95 on TV, and just 2 days ago I joined Rush 24/7 on an annual basis, so I get to see more of you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir. Congratulations. That's such a wise decision and expenditure.
Well, and I think so. It leads me to my second point. If you think you look good on DittoCam, try taking an iPhone, plugging it into a projector, because I watch you on a 130-inch screen every night.
Wait a minute. Say that. You think I'd look better on an iPhone instead of the DittoCam? Is that what you're saying?
No. I take my iPhone, I plug it into a projector so I can see your magnanimous
I
vision.
gotcha. 130-inch screen?
It's still not enough.
Is that a projector or an actual TV?
It's a projector.
It's a projector.
Yeah. My final point.
Quick. 130 inches is how many feet?
Oh gosh, don't make me do math right now.
All right, I'll exempt you because we're short of time. So get to your next point.
Yes, the closeness of last night's election. I think it tells me that this wasn't a rejection of the ideology of the Republican Party, just a rejection, really, of the candidate that was chosen. So I think our party will be fine. I just think that we had the wrong guy propped up.
Well, I haven't finished. Look, some of that I don't disagree with. The bit about it, the ideology, that's probably true. It's a toss-up. But it was a loss. You know, one thing you can do, you can take these losses. Hey, we only lost by 21,000. It was close. Hey, we only lost by 10,000. Hey, it was close. Hey, we only lost. It's a loss. And for the Democrats, it was a huge win. And how did they do it? And what does it mean going forward? And I'm going to tell you, if you're in politics and you've ever looked at a woman the wrong way, you can expect a woman at some point to go public and say so. In fact, because of the success they had with this, it's entirely possible that men who haven't done a single thing in terms of mistreating a woman, abusing her, or harassing her are still nevertheless going to be accused of it. It has become a political tactic. We have now had, this is a point that I made yesterday, we have now had something that is a genuinely serious thing in its own right, in its own contained universe, sexual harassment. The use of sexual harassment, the treatment of women or others in the workplace, that's a legitimate thing, but it's now just been corrupted and weaponized and made to look like a political opposition research weapon. And that's exactly what's happened. And so anybody can see, and you can see that when one of these allegations is made, the women are believed and the men who are accused are not, which means the men have to prove a negative and the accusers don't have to prove anything. That is a powerful weapon the Democrats have decided to use. And believe me, as we speak, they are behind closed doors creating further stratagems using this, and they are picking their targets. And you're going to see more of it, I predict. It looks like we have a compromise here between the... I'm not sure what I've been told is the right. The House and Senate are meeting on the tax bill, and if this is the conference committee, is that what's been going on? Then we have a deal in the conference committee. That's a big deal. That means the House and Senate have agreed on one form of the bill. You know, the House passed their bill and the Senate passed theirs. Then after that, you have to go to conference between the House and the Senate to compromise between the two bills because they're different. That supposedly has happened. And, folks, I've got some real bad technical problems here. Do you know what switch static is? I've got it constantly here. At any rate, what has to happen now is that after the compromise bill now has to pass both the House and Senate again. Now there's one bill. Now, I just got a news flash on this. I don't know any of the details. The last I heard, one of the things that I think the Senate put in or wanted in was in fact, a reduction in the top marginal rate from 39.6 down to 37. Remember when this all started? I mean, I had Paul Ryan on the program. I said, why are you not touching the top rate? I mean, this is being done, we were told, to spur economic growth, that it would pay for itself by way of creating new taxpayers. You know, all of this, it still frustrates me like I can't explain. Whenever there's a tax cut proposed, the first thing anybody in the swamp says, Republican or Democrat, is how are we going to pay for it? And that, I cannot tell you how offensive that is to me. What they really mean is, okay, we in Washington are going to take less money from the people. Well, how do we make it up? How do we pay for it becomes, how do we get the money back that we are letting them keep? In other words, how do we not lose on this deal? And that kind of thinking infuriates me, that government has primacy, that the government cannot do with a dime less this month than last, or this year than last. The whole idea here is to shrink government. The whole idea, at least in the conservative ideological take on this, is to empower individuals and disempower federal government. And you do that by making it smaller. So who cares if the government has to do with less money? Everybody else has to do that. Where is it written that Washington never, ever has to do with less? But that's what they all mean when they say we have to find a way to pay for it. And so all of the state and local tax deduction, the elimination of state and local taxes, was to pay for it. If we're going to cut rates all across the board, and if we're going to cut the corporate rate, then these tax writers said, well, that means we're going to get less money. We have to find a way to pay for this. So they raise taxes on somebody else. And they raise taxes on people by denying them the deductibility of state and local income taxes, and in some states, property taxes. And this was going to have a very broad impact in high-tax blue states, New York, California, Illinois, Connecticut. And, I mean, they were squealing like crazy over this in those states. And so the call went up, well, we've got to do something to soften the blow. So we will allow the people to deduct their property taxes, but not state and local income taxes. Oh, that was their compromise, because Washington still had to pay for this. I maintain that if Washington has to pay for it, meaning when it's over, Washington doesn't lose any money, then there really hasn't been a tax cut. That means economic growth. How can there be? If you cut tax rates and people pay less in taxes, but Washington doesn't lose any money, and I'm speaking in their lingo, I hate that lingo, but if that's in order to be communicative here, if Washington doesn't lose any money in the deal, how in the world has there ever been a tax cut? So we had to find ways to pay for these tax cuts for the middle class, who we are desperately trying to relate to. We know life is tough. We know life is hard. We know the tax code's complicated. We in Washington are going to cut your taxes, and we're going to make it very simple for you to fill out your tax form. Only a postcard from now on out. But that means we're going to have less money here. So as we cater to you, we're going to find other people to make up the difference. And one of the other ways they did it was to not cut the top marginal rate for the top 1 or 5%, which is 39.6. And when I had Ryan on here, Ryan said, well, you got to talk to the president about that. That's his idea. The president is immovable on this. The president maintains that people like him don't need a tax cut and don't want a tax cut, and so they're not going to get a tax cut. To which I said to Speaker Ryan, well, how in the world then is this going to be an economic growth thing? How are you going to grow the economy so that this tax cut, quote unquote, pays for itself? by creating economic growth that results in new people being hired, which creates new taxpayers. And that's how you see, that's the way you generate new revenue and make up whatever Washington